Sources within the Ontario government say the auto tariffs announced by Donald Trump yesterday may not be as steep as the U.S. president indicated. Trump had said any vehicles imported into the U.S. will be slapped with 25% tariffs starting April 2nd. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop takes us through the latest on this developing story.
Auto parts can cross back and forth multiple times between the U.S. and Canada. And two senior Ontario government officials say from their understanding, vehicles more than 50% made in the USA will be exempt from tariffs. We're not naming the officials as they're not authorized to speak publicly about negotiations. They expect any vehicles from Canada less than 50% made in the U.S. will be tariffed, but at 12.5%, half the amount stated yesterday by President Donald Trump.
We need to retaliate. I just got off the phone with the Prime Minister. I had a good conversation with the Prime Minister. He agrees 100%.
But Premier Ford says they agreed to wait until April 2nd, when the tariffs are set to come into effect, along with more widespread tariffs. Ford confirming he spoke last night with President Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
When I asked Secretary Lutnick what is coming April the 2nd outside of the auto, his answer was, I don't know.
Today in Oshawa, union leaders for auto workers rallied, wearing those elbows up T-shirts, the latest slogan for standing up to the United States. They also held an emergency meeting.
This is not an industry that is Donald Trump's to steal.
And they had a message for the heads of auto companies.
If you think that you can shift production, factories, mills, and reinvest in the United States out of Canada and think that you're going to have open access to our market, you need to think again.
But despite that tough talk, workers are nervous, including people employed at companies that work closely with the auto plant.
That's not good. We have a lot of people trying to support their families who are obviously very worried about any potential job impact, right? There's been talk about cutting back of like midnight shifts across the street, which obviously would impact us.
As for that looming date of April 2nd, with more tariff news expected, here's how the Premier described it yesterday.
President Trump's calling it Liberation Day. I call it Termination Day for American workers.
Ford says he'll be meeting on Friday with the Prime Minister and the other premiers, and then he'll be meeting soon with the CEOs of auto companies. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
With all the unreliability stateside, Doug Ford says trade between provinces will be his top priority when the legislature resumes. The experts say the Premier should start by addressing rules that make it hard for workers to move seamlessly between provinces. Sean Jeffords has this story.
We're getting rid of all the exemptions when we get back in the legislature.
Doug Ford talking about eliminating interprovincial trade barriers. It's part of the Ontario Premier's plan to fight Donald Trump's tariffs and stimulate the provincial economy. And the Premier is clear he wants this action to be the start of a larger trend in the face of the trade war with the U.S.
Hopefully all the other premiers are going to follow because it's going to benefit everyone in Canada.
Some reports say removing barriers could increase the size of Canada's economy by $250 billion a year. The barriers themselves are best described as a set of differing standards and rules that exist between provinces. The head of Ontario's Chamber of Commerce says he'd like to see Ford make it easier for workers to go where the opportunities lie anywhere in Canada.
And this could be very powerful because we have labor shortages in some areas, and there's no reason why a credential that's recognized in Quebec or Alberta or British Columbia or anywhere else shouldn't be recognized in Ontario.
One of those professions where the province is experiencing a labor shortage most profoundly is nursing. According to the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, the province needs 26,000 more nurses. The head of that group says every province has its own certification rules.
And let's solve the issues of human resource challenges that we have, whether it is in the healthcare sector or in other industries.
For some businesses, meeting individual standards can make it hard to sell products in different provinces.
It's within our own borders.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants Ford's bill to automatically recognize the standards in other provinces.
This is something we can control, and all provinces should follow suit. We've been fighting for this for years. Mutual recognition It's the easiest way to go about this, to let people and goods flow freely across Canada's provinces.
But this economist says Canadians should temper their expectations.
I mean, politicians make it seem like they've just discovered this free lunch that's been sitting there for decades. But in fact, we have an agreement on internal trade that was signed in 1995 specifically to try to address these issues. To the extent that there's low-hanging fruit here, that fruit was harvested a long time ago.
Ford hasn't said when he'll unveil that new bill, but politicians returned to Queen's Park on April 14th, even as tariff plans coming out of the White House seem to change on a daily basis. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
The trial began today in a Cayuga courtroom for two people accused of killing an OPP officer. Constable Greg Pershela was killed in 2022. He was fatally shot while responding to reports of a car in a ditch in the Hagersville area. Two people are charged with first-degree murder in his death. Both have pleaded not guilty. Today, the Crown read its opening statement. They say tomorrow they will play body cam video that captured the shooting. Toronto police are appealing for information after a 23-year-old man was shot and killed in Etobicoke Wednesday night. Police identifying the victim today as they search for two suspects believed to be behind the city's 7th homicide this year. Tyler Cheese has more.
It's awful to stand up here for one victim, but last night we're lucky that I'm not up here talking about multiple victims.
The shooting happened Wednesday evening outside of a housing complex near Martin Grove and Albion Roads, not far from a playground and other townhomes. Toronto police were called to the scene around 9 p.m.
At that time, they located a male suffering from a gunshot wound. Ultimately, he succumbed to his injuries despite the officer's best efforts. He was pronounced deceased on scene.
Police identifying the victim as 23-year-old Aveas Ismail Aveas. Investigators are asking for witnesses or anyone with information to come forward.
We are looking for two suspects that are described as male, wearing a black hooded jacket, black pants, and black shoes. Suspect number 2 is described as a male wearing a gray hoodie, white t-shirt, black pants, white socks, and dark shoes.
Residents in the area say they aren't surprised to hear about the shooting.
It's a dangerous area. It's not nothing new to any of us. We've kind of been knowing the people that live here, what it's like. So for the most part, me personally, when I'm coming home, I just go home, I stay inside.
We need security to be to protect us in this area, to see a young boy lifeless like that, it's painful.
The Martin Grove and Albion area has seen several fatal shootings in recent years, including one at a nearby school last summer that left one man dead and 4 others injured. The city councillor for Etobicoke North says the key to cutting down on youth crime is to make sure they're engaged.
We need better outreach programs. We need to get to our youth before the gangs get to our youth.
This anti-gun advocate agrees, but feels the answer lies in more employment opportunities for young people.
I'm always saying the best antidote to crime is a good job, and young people do not have access to meaningful and gainful employment opportunities.
He's calling on the city and all levels of government to invest more in youth employment and issues such as youth homelessness and lack of access to community spaces. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
In Brampton, Peel police are investigating after a man was shot dead at his home. It happened late Wednesday. Dale Manukduk has those details.
A Peel Police Mobile Command Center and several other law enforcement vehicles lined the front of this home along Heritage Road near Embleton Road in Brampton. Last night around 11 p.m., cops were called here for a shooting.
Officers arrived on scene with Peel paramedics and Brampton Fire. They located one male in his 20s that had been shot. He was then transported to a local hospital. Despite best efforts with our first responders, the victim was pronounced deceased at the hospital.
Police say the victim lived in the home with his family, 2 of whom were taken to hospital with minor injuries. It's unclear what the motive was, if the shooting was targeted or a potential home invasion.
It's still very early on in the investigation. We have no suspect information to release at this time. We are working diligently with witnesses and canvassing for video.
Several of the neighbors across the street in this new subdivision were woken by police in the early morning hours.
Police came and they asked for the cameras and the things, and so we tried to help them out.
The cameras belonging to those homes did not capture what happened. Residents, however, concerned about the violence erupting in the family neighborhood.
All those houses, they got a little kids, and this is when the kids coming out in the morning, actually find out what's happening here, why the police is this, and sometimes it's difficult to answer those type of questions.
We do go like here car theft and other things, yes, not like fatality.
Police are asking that anyone with information or video footage to contact them. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Brampton.
We're keeping an eye on what could be a pretty nasty spring ice storm in the region this weekend. OPP warning people to be prepared.
Expecting rain, freezing rain, ice pellets with ice accretion, meaning that rain will be freezing on contact and will be sticking to surfaces like your vehicle or to the road or to the tree that you parked underneath. And if enough ice accretion happens, that branch that you're parked underneath could come crashing down, causing damage to your vehicle. It could be resulting in power outages as well.
OPP also suggesting people stock up on any essentials tonight and early tomorrow. Environment Canada is forecasting accumulations of 5 to 15 centimeters of precipitation. Areas between Parry Sound and Kingston are likely to bear the brunt of this freezing rain. Toronto Council has ratified a new deal with tens of thousands of its city workers. City Council voted to ratify the 4-year contract yesterday. That's after the workers' union, CUPE 79, threatened to go on strike earlier this month. CUPE represents 27,000 of the city's inside workers, from law clerks to child and youth workers. The new deal includes nearly 4% annual wage increases and a one-time pay bump for certain groups, including nurse practitioners. Health officials are on high alert tonight as cases of measles in Ontario continue to surge. Canada is facing its biggest outbreak of the disease in decades, and there's concern it will get worse after March break just a few weeks ago. Jennifer Yoon has this story.
It's one of the most contagious and preventable diseases out there, but measles is once again sweeping through Canada and hitting one province hard. 102 more cases have been recorded in Ontario alone this past week, most caught in community settings. It's a smaller spike than last week when Public Health Ontario reported 120 new infections.
It's unquestionably good news that the numbers are not climbing anymore. That's the first step, right? How long it's going to take for them to go away, for the numbers to decline, hard to tell.
Especially because we may not have seen the full fallout from spring break yet, says Public Health Ontario.
I'm not expecting this to sort of turn around on a dime. I think it will take time, but I think that that time is also related to the ongoing efforts of getting people vaccinated.
And health authorities are trying hard to convince people to get vaccinated, enforcing a law this week in this region of southwestern Ontario, mandating children in schools be immunized for several diseases, including measles, or be sent home.
We would have suspended 461 students, and I'm really, really proud to say our team has been working so hard communicating with parents and students, and we've reduced that number as at this morning by over 50%.
Children make up the majority of people hospitalized because of measles in Ontario. Most were unvaccinated and 2 landed in the intensive care unit. That's why public health officials are imploring parents to immunize their kids. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
The Toronto Blue Jays opened its season today, but the final result not the one that the team or fans were hoping for.
Fastball drilled. Another shot to deep right. The second home run of the game by Rutschman, the 5th on the afternoon for the Orioles.
You can hear some cheers, but a pretty muted ballpark. Our Jays going down 12-2 in Game 1 of this Battle of the Birds series. It wasn't all bad news, though. One of our new stars joining the team, Andres Jimenez, hit a home run in his first game as a Blue Jay. Toronto takes on the Baltimore Orioles once again tomorrow night. Welcome back. Durham police have arrested 11 Quebec residents in connection with an auto theft ring here in the GTA. The police chief saying Quebecers coming to Ontario to steal cars fits an established pattern.
Well, there's well-documented projects that have happened throughout the GTA that reveal that cars are stolen from Ontario, from the GTA area, and moved through the Port of Montreal. This is organized crime, as I've said. So borders mean nothing to them. This is where there's high-valued targets for them to steal, and they're going to do it.
So far, police have linked 38 stolen vehicles to this crime ring. 20 of those vehicles have been recovered. Police say the 11 suspects are facing more than 160 charges altogether, adding that 4 other suspects remain outstanding. If you buy a car from a dealer, you wouldn't expect the vehicle to be stolen property, but despite checks and balances, some stolen vehicles are slipping through the cracks. Now CBSA is working to close a loophole that makes it easier for thieves to get away with fraud. Sarah McMillan reports.
At this used car dealership, every vehicle that comes in is scrutinized to make sure the vehicle history and ownership all add up. Too often, they don't.
I only used to read about the revind cars in the newspaper. I mean, come 21, 22, it's been our life. We've been living, fighting off revind cars.
Revind. That's when thieves replace the unique vehicle identification number, or VIN, usually found on a dashboard and elsewhere on a vehicle, with a different one, often cloned from another vehicle, to give the stolen car a fake history and pass it off as a different car.
We catch most of them. Sometimes they slip through. The criminals are getting very sophisticated. They're upping and upping and upping their game, and it presents a challenge.
Meaning you could buy a car, register it at Service Ontario, and not have any idea that it's really a stolen vehicle. There are protections for those who buy from licensed dealers. If you do a private sale, you could end up losing the car and your insurance coverage if it's eventually discovered to be a stolen vehicle. Police explain there are 3 main ways stolen vehicles are used by thieves. Many are exported from places like the Port of Montreal. Some are taken apart and used for parts, and others are revinned, either to be used for other criminal activity or sold to unsuspecting buyers.
The numbers are massive. We're not seeing it just limited to passenger vehicles, but we're also seeing it to transport trucks and also 53-foot trailers and other items like that that are being used for commercial processes as well, to cross-border and international.
Detective O'Connor says Peel police have investigated hundreds of revinds just in the past year. While it's rare for these vehicles to get past the scrutiny of dealers, it can and does happen. Experts say the most popular VINs used by thieves, ones cloned from vehicles that have been legally exported out of the country.
Because now they know that that was a legitimate VIN when it left, and the likelihood of it coming back to Ontario is extremely remote. So now they can use that VIN and give it the appearance that it is no longer, it's still in the country.
There are searches that buyers and dealers can do, pulling up accident history and past ownership details associated with a VIN. But export information is held by the Canada Border Services Agency.
We do have loopholes in our system, and one of the big loopholes is the fact that we can't keep track or can't keep really good track of vehicles that have been exported. And these identities are very subject to being compromised.
CBSA is starting to make efforts to close that loophole. Just this week, it started sharing some VIN information with Carfax, which offers vehicle history reports, which cost about $70, and with Equite Association, which is focused on insurance fraud. The association that represents used car dealers in this province has been asking CBSA for more than a year to share export information.
This isn't going to be the be-all and end-all solution. Like if we were able to search a VIN to see if it was exported, all auto theft will stop. It's part of a process.
James Hamilton says providing data to Carfax is a good start, but argues dealers shouldn't have to pay Carfax to check if a VIN was exported. CBSA has cited privacy concerns with sharing export information with the association, but tells CBC it is exploring ways to responsibly share information with more stakeholders. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette joins us now with a check on the forecast. And Colette, some messy, icy weather headed our way.
Yeah, that's right, Kelda. Lots of things going on and lots of variables as well with what's coming towards us this weekend. We know there'll be in areas of freezing rain and areas of ice pellets, but it's that line where it's going to set up and be really continuous over many hours and getting into that potential for an ice storm that is so crucial. So we have the special weather statement essentially from, a large part of eastern and into southern Ontario, northeastern Ontario. But something I also want to point out that at this time, there's also a freezing rain warning. It's for a pretty small area. Quite likely this is going to get expanded down across much of eastern Ontario as we see how this is going to be coming together. There's not complete model agreement, but I'll show you kind of what I'm thinking is setting up here. So just in the short term, we don't have to deal with anything tonight, and during the day tomorrow, maybe some sunny breaks early, and then we get into more cloud cover. And then as we roll this towards the afternoon, could have a couple of flurries, but then really it's just a chance of showers. So that's through the afternoon and the early part of the evening. Once we get towards those mid-evening hours and later evening, this is 9 p.m. where I've stopped this, that chance of more of a mix with freezing rain in there with the rain. And you can see it's a wide area stretching up towards Georgian Bay and east towards Kingston. So that's Friday night into Saturday morning. Then it lifts, and any moisture left behind will be into the mild sector in Toronto. It changes over to rain showers there. But see how you get this continuing here in this area around Parry Sound and Huntsville and back towards Peterborough and on towards Kingston. So that's where it's more likely that it is prolonged. But do know that Saturday night into Sunday, with the next wave of moisture, it does appear that we're going to get into another opportunity for the GTA to have some freezing rain, and that one's perhaps even more likely that Saturday night into Sunday. So some poor road conditions, everything you want to just stay very aware of. But the prolonged event at this time anyway looks like it'll be a little further north of the GTA, and that's where we really get into that risk of power outages when you have that ice accretion that could be over 15 or even 20 millimeters. Overnight tonight, a low of 0 for Toronto, 4 tomorrow, and then it is going to be a very busy weekend in terms of tracking this weather.
Thanks so much, Colette. And that's our show tonight. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.